we're going to have an extended session today, a very extended session with Vivienne. And it's going to be done in a way that's going to be hopefully helpful to everyone here. That's why I asked you all to bring your own list of issues and so on. Some of you will get perhaps really great results. Some won't get anything. And some will get somewhere in between. A lot of that has to do with your own education on this process, how well you've done a little homework by reading what's on our website, understanding the terms used, having practiced before, and so on. And that's okay. I only point that out. And that's another reason we record all of these things, so you can go back and look at it. I expect to do more of these in the future, so you can practice your skills, get better at it, and so on. Okay. Now, the next thing is Happy Valentine's Day for all you ladies out there. Okay. It's that special day for you. We're having this on Valentine's Day, and so my big hugs to all the ladies. Okay. Okay. Let me see. Let me have the following people raise your hands, if you would. I will call on you as time goes on. But be Sherry Baker, of course, Kalua Seiko, and Vivienne. If you guys would raise your hands, that'll put you at the top of my little list here, and I'll know right where you are, and I can unmute you when the time comes. And here is well, Vivienne, there you are. Okay, great, thanks. Now let me bring on Sherry Baker here a second. Sherry, hello.
Hello.
You're there.
Here I am.
Okay. You've got a different background today. You're in a different part of your home?
No, I am in sunny Miami, Florida today.
Oh, you are? Okay. Yes. Visiting family, I think, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Typically, Sherry and I, compare a few notes on A Course in Miracles. She's our resident Course in Miracles advanced student. We're not going to do that today because I want to put aside more and more time for our working together, if you will. And so, Sherry, you're going to be around. If you have wisdom to impart, wise away, okay?
Okay.
Okay. All right. Now, before we get to Vivienne, let me and by the way, Sherry, I'm gonna leave you unmuted, for the whole time here. But let me unmute Kalua. Kalua, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Again, your voice is a little light, but so you need to.
Okay. Can you hear me better now?
That's a little better, but if you keep the microphone up, that'd be helpful.
I will.
Okay. Last time, the whole group did work with you.
Yes.
Okay. We did it at the latter part of it. Okay.
Yes.
And you called me a few days ago.
Yes.
With an update.
Yes.
And give us the update.
The blood test results came back, and they were pretty astonishing. When we spoke, when I was on the webinar, it was at 6.67. This is my C-reactive protein.
Yes.
And which is very, very high.
Yeah, it's in the cardiac warning area.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I took a blood test last week to see what the results would be, and it came back 0.28.
Which is excellent. Am I not correct?
Yes, it's the complete absence of. So it went from as high as it should not be, to very, very healthy.
Okay. Now, you had other things that happened with you as well, but I want to stay on this for a moment.
Yes.
So when we were doing this 2 weeks ago for you, the whole group, etc., like we're going to do today with someone else. Okay. When we were doing that, you had recently gotten that result, as well as some other ailments. So we did it, and then you end up with this rather astonishing drop.
Yes.
Now, we could say, well, okay, you were just under stress at the time, it put it up temporarily, not under stress now, and that's all that happened, and our work together didn't do it. I mean, one could say that because we just don't have tons and tons of data here. But what's your thought about that?
Good question. I was skeptical. I did go through the skeptic's mentality of actually going through the process of requesting another physician look at the test result or look at the blood or have a run again. And I was not able to reach that source twice. And that's when I realized that the unseen therapist, the divine, was giving me grace and time to think and accept his gift rather than trying to control the situation myself.
Yeah, now, I talked to a couple of a nurse and some medical people about, this kind of an astonishing drop.
Yes.
And I said, well, what would medicine say about that? Because I'm not a doctor. I really don't know. They said, well, they would just say there was some temporary stress or something else happened. But I said, how often does that happen? And they'd never seen it before. Okay, that was one. Okay.
Oh.
And then I said, well, what is the odds that there is a lab error, an error in the lab test someplace? And they said, well, that's what usually happens when something astonishing like this happens. They say, well, there must have been a lab error. But as a practical matter, while lab errors do occur, I am told, what's the right term? The odds of them happening are remotely small. They're very, very, very tiny. They hardly ever happen. Now, it could have been, so therefore it could have been a lab thing and so on. So, but anyway, we don't really know for sure. And it may just be coincidence. We did all this work, and that wasn't the cause of it at all. You're shaking your head.
There is no coincidences, Gary.
Okay.
I'm very grateful to the group as a whole for their assistance, and of course to you, Gary, that I got such remarkable results back.
Okay. Now, that wasn't the only issue. There was also a tinnitus, ringing in the ears, which as a pre-frame here, in my experience over the years with tinnitus, I've had some really good results with the tapping form in the past, and I've also just got zero results in a few things in between, but it hasn't been one of our consistent winners, so to speak. It's been spotty results. Now, you had some, at least a few days ago when you talked to me, some interesting results. So why don't you talk about that?
What I found was that in sharing my results, that the hearing wasn't related to my auditory hearing issue. It was related to an emotional issue of my voice. And I have a history of unpleasant events relating to my voice because it's a bit unusual.
Well, we talked about that. To me, your voice is very engaging. It's soft, it's quiet, but it's also seems to be centered and so on. But other people criticize your voice, I guess, over time. Yes.
Yes, I have childhood issues that came up that totally surprised me because it was so unrelated. I actually completely lost my voice at one time, and I had to go on either surgery or 3 weeks of total voice rest, is what they called it. I had to go through a speech therapist because I was told I was speaking incorrectly. So all these events apparently were affecting my hearing, because I didn't want to hear my own voice. I didn't want to hear what other people would say about when I was speaking. And that connection didn't come till several days later.
Okay, so let me ask about that, because and we'll get to it in a moment. Your tinnitus improved in a substantial way. Not completely, but in a substantial way.
Yes.
But what I want to explore with you was, if I'm hearing you right, while we were doing the work 2 weeks ago, the whole group with you,
Yes.
you weren't getting these insights about the voice rejections, my term, that you've had over time. That showed up a little while later.
Yes. Yes. As a matter of fact, when the group was engaged in the circle, I mentioned that some emotion came up, but I couldn't pinpoint what that emotion was. And so that had to settle, I guess. And then it seemed like it was circuitous, but I think the way unseen therapist works is not linear. So comments were made about my voice, but in a supportive way. So to me, I thought, well, isn't that ironic? And then all of a sudden, bingo, it just started to emerge, these events in my past about my voice.
So were you feeling resolution on these past events, these past comments on your voice? Like the sting was no longer there kind of thing?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I see the grace in all of it, because all of that led me to study. I think I mentioned I was bilingual, so one of the issues of my school counselor was due to this, that I needed extra help, which is not considered in my culture as something positive. In other words, I had a problem, is what the school was telling me.
Yeah.
And so that led me to up my study in this area of writing, speaking, studying language, and that contributed to my direction today.
Okay. So I'm trying to piece this together. So a few days later, after we worked with you, these realizations came about, these resolutions showed up, and that's what I'm hearing.
Yes.
On all these past specific events.
Right.
And along the way, your tinnitus, the ringing in your ears, improved.
Yes.
Did I said it right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So tell us what the improvement is.
All right. The first very obvious improvement is my right ear completely cleared. And I kept waiting for it. I was anticipating it, and it did not return. The left ear, the sound is not so much in the ear as much as it's in my head, if that makes any sense. It's resonating somewhere in my head, and the tone of it has changed.
Okay. So in EFT terms, what I'm hearing, this is sort of what we've called, for those that are familiar with this, chasing the pain, although there's not any pain involved. But it's like you were having the tinnitus in both ears. One of the ears, no problem anymore. The other one shifted. There's no longer, if I hear it right, there's no longer ringing in the ears. There is now a thing going on in the head. It's a different location.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So in my experience, but I conclude from that the tinnitus in the ear is gone.
Yes.
Now there's another issue showing up in the head, which is reflective of something yet undone, yet unresolved.
Yes, I think that's correct.
Okay. Well, we don't know for sure. That's just how it seems to me over time. Okay, now let me see what else you had. You had a stiff knee at the time, and when we talked here recently, you said that got worse.
Yes.
Okay, tell us about that.
Well, I got a little slap happy. I started doing stairs, and I did not realize at the time stairs are not very good for the knees. If you're going to do exercise, it's much better to do it on a flat plane. So that created a bit of issue. I didn't mention this, but I got a pair of shoes that were aiming toward balance, and that shifts the weight of my body. And apparently that also affected my knee. So
Okay.
it was unpleasant for a few days.
Well, okay, but the knee now remains as something that still needs worked on to be resolved and so on.
Yes.
So we didn't really get much in the way of improvement on the knee from our work before. Other things, yes, but that, no, right?
Well, I think I contributed in a very negative fashion. I think that the improvement was there, but I then went against it by pushing the limits of it.
So it may have improved.
Yes.
But you did your best to thwart the improvement, huh?
Yes.
Okay. All right. One more thing, and then we're going to move on to Vivienne.
Yes.
The kind of things that we just talked about, the tinnitus, the blood tests, the sore knee, etc., are things we can measure and talk about reasonably well. But there is another piece to this that is in the how do you measure that kind of thing, and that had to do with, what's my note here? A sustained and protected sense of being since the webinar. Talk about that, could you?
Yes. It's very lovely, and I'm really grateful to everyone. I sensed this protection, this lovely safety around me, so I could be in a state of healing. And as usual, I kept expecting it to disappear like other things have in my life, and it has continued. So it's built a foundation for me that this is not something that's going to leave me now. And as Gabriella says, these are projections that we manifest. And when I receive this gift from everyone, I believe that it will stay with me. But I encourage everyone that you will receive this warm feeling of like a warm blanket about you.
Yeah. Well, interesting enough, not everybody receives that, at least at first. There's a lot of practice goes on sometimes. You have been doing a lot of practice and so on. So I mean, different people get these things at different times. It may come and go, as it has with some of our attendees here, and all of that is just part of this ongoing process that we're working on here. So, okay, Kalua, thank you so much. I'm going to mute you now. Hold on. And Vivienne, there you are.
Here I am. Hi, Gary.
Hi. Okay, so you and I corresponded, what was it, about a week ago?
No, just about 3 days ago.
Oh, seems to me it was longer than that. But anyway, okay. And you had mentioned to me you had a number of traumas in your past.
Mm-hmm.
And they were resulting in a number of severe physical issues, like electricity in your legs, some nauseousness, and other things.
Yes.
And so we worked on that, didn't we, a little bit, you and I? We got on Skype and worked on that?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us what happened.
While we were working on it, the sensations changed a bit. It moved out of being in my whole body to just being in my legs, and there was more relaxation. As we talked about it afterwards, the nausea eased up and the hissing in my ears got lessened, but pounding in my heart was lessened. So by the time that we got off of the call, I felt fairly calm. Then I woke up, as I had been doing, which is how this originally started, the contact. I woke up like around 4 in the morning in a state of high anxiety with electricity running up my body and my heart pounding and the nausea in the ears and the whole thing. And I decided to just, even though it was like 3:30, 4 in the morning, to just sit up and try doing the practice.
You mean optimal EFT?
Yes, just exactly as you teach it. And I did it for about 5 minutes, and I felt my body starting to calm down. So I did it about another 5 minutes, and I was completely relaxed. other than some hissing, lower level hissing in my ears, everything else had subsided, and I meditated for about 15-20 minutes. And then I fell back into a really deep sleep, and I woke up feeling really good, which ordinarily I would wake up at 3:30 or 4 in the morning. I would not fall back asleep. I would just feel anxious.
Okay.
So that has continued to happen, though, every night. I wake up. It's not like it's disappeared. It comes back, but now I can work with it. And some nights I'm able to get it to really down to 0. And 2 of the nights I got it down to 0, and then last night I got it down to about a 1.5.
Okay, great. And thank you for that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I was able to get back to sleep.
Yeah, good. All right, so I want to give you my personal gratitude for sharing all of this with us, because we're going to spend the rest of our webinar today working on these issues. But I wanted to get up front, some of the stuff going on, and what we've done before is sort of a foundational understanding piece for us. Hold on one second here. I've got to do something. But let me go back over what we did. The first thing that we did was we aimed optimal EFT at the symptoms in your body. That's what we aimed it at. We didn't look for cause at the moment or anything like that. We aimed it at the symptoms, the pounding heart that you had, for example, the nauseousness, the electricity in your body, the shocking feeling, and so on. And we got some results with that, but it wasn't dramatic, correct?
Right. I think it went from like a 7 to a 5.
Yeah, something like that. Okay. So, worthwhile, yeah, get your attention a little bit, but certainly not dramatic by any means. And so then what we did, and this is typical optimal EFT, is when we find that the aiming at the symptoms isn't doing the job completely, and often it doesn't, by the way, we then start using what I refer to on our website as the refinements. That is, we're starting now to get to a deeper cause, emotional causes, spiritual causes, things that are underneath the surface of a mental type nature. I said that right, did I?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So when we did that, and I started asking you about, how long have you had these various trauma, and you've had for the last 20 years a whole bunch of traumas. And I asked you about, what might even be foundation for those, like back in childhood. And you could find a few of those. One in particular was you had a rebirthing experience, which took you back to the birth experience itself, and some major traumas there. All those symptoms seem to have been there as you went back to that place. Talk about that a little bit, could you?
Yes. So this was during a holotropic breathing session.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's fairly common when people start doing holotropic breath work, at some point you have a rebirthing experience. And I had the experience of moving down a birth canal, and then suddenly everything went limp. All my muscles went limp, and I could actually smell some kind of like ether or something that must have been given to my mother. I mean, I was deeply in an altered state and went right back there. And I collapsed. My muscles no longer would move, and I was paralyzed, and I was unable to breathe, because now, or whatever the sensation is as you're moving down the canal and you're in a narrow space. And so I was just stuck there, and I couldn't move in or out, and I couldn't get any of my muscles to move, and I couldn't, in the breath work, I couldn't breathe. I don't know that that would have been relevant in the actual, when I was being birthed.
Yeah.
But in the breath work, I was really struggling to get air. And so they worked with me by pushing against my head and doing other things that would activate my musculature, so I could have the full experience of like the hero's emergence out and complete the experience. But I don't think that ever really took the experience out of my body, because it's the same thing that I have now, is this pattern of when there's something there's a moment when I'm moving towards something that I'm putting a lot of effort in and I need to sort of rally all of my resources, where I have this experience where I start to collapse and I feel paralyzed and I get somewhat dissociated state. And then that, when I can't get myself reorganized and I can't access my resources and really get engaged in moving forward, and this happens in a lot of different areas of my life, then the panic starts. And I start feeling this sense of electricity coming up and down my body and a sense of total panic and hissing in my ears. And then there, as now built onto the birth experience, the traumas that I've had in my life, there's a sense of catastrophe coming. And then I just feel like I'm completely alone with this sense of panic, and I'm like in a slightly dissociated state.
Okay. All right. And so what we did...
Very unpleasant.
Say it again?
And it's very unpleasant. It's really disconcerting when it happens.
Yeah, I got it. So what we did when we were going towards college, we started to aim unseen therapists at the birthing experience. And as a result of that, now your physical symptoms started to not get perfect or anything, but they got much better. The pounding heart eventually went down to like a 7 or 8 or something, down to a 1, I think, as it nauseousness left. The hissing in your ears went way, way down. I'm remembering that right?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it went quite far down.
And the electricity in your legs was substantially improved?
Well, it moved from being in my total body to just being in my legs, and that eased up a little bit.
Yeah, okay. So by aiming at the causes of it, we got more results. That's what I want to point out here. We got more results than aiming at the symptoms.
Right.
Okay. And that's something I really want to point out here. Many times with optimal EFT, for that matter, the tapping, we can aim something at the symptoms and we can get some results. And sometimes they're even permanent or long-lasting. Not very often, but sometimes they are. And that can be misleading, because usually we need to get to the underlying causes, and we're going to do more of that today, not only with you, but the whole group is going to participate in a way similar to what we did last time. So you also said to me in an email here a day or two ago that you had done some past life regressions and felt that these same symptoms were occurring in previous lives. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. And so I know different people have different views about whether past lives exist or don't exist, and that's immaterial to us. What we're really looking for is whatever seems to be the cause in your own system. And if there's a past life, be it a true one or not, we don't care, as long as we can get to something that seems to be causing, the issues. Unseen therapist, if we are wrong, she's not. Okay? So she can deal with it. So anyway, what I'd like to do now is engage everyone, and we're going to do this for us all. Let me give you the idea here, and we're going to do this slowly so that everybody has a chance to get involved, get their own healing, get their own result, etc. Okay. So what we're going to do first is we're going to do a little physical tapping, actually, because it's a nice, convenient, quick way to get ourselves a little more peaceful and quiet, so that when we do get quiet to being an unseen therapist, we're a little quieter still. This seems to give us that kind of result. And we're going to do that 2 or 3 times. Get quiet. And then what we're going to do is we're going to enter a loving state and share that state with everyone in a form of a golden ball. And that's going to be our beginning. From there, we're going to get into more refined pieces of all of this, build on it and build on it and build on it. But we're going to go slow so we bring everybody along. And again, I must emphasize that if you haven't, educated yourself on the various processes of optimal EFT, I would urge you to do so after this. The next time we do it, you may get better results still. So What we need to do is locate in our own past a loving moment. It could be with a person. It could be with a pet. It could be just in a loving moment when you're sitting in a movie theater watching something on the big screen. It could be any moment in your life. Doesn't have to be a dramatic one. Just any moment when you go, oh, that's really loving. That's really nice. That's all we want to do right for the moment. We want to locate that. That shouldn't take you long. I'm going to give you 10 seconds to do that. Just locate it, okay? Okay. So hopefully you've located it. You might want to make a little note of it, just a little word or two about what that might be, or just remember it. And now what we're going to do is get ourselves into a loving state where we recall this loving moment, and we get quiet, and we attempt to expand its intensity so we get more and more loving. We're going to do this a little bit before we actually get into the specific work for Vivienne, because this is sort of groundwork to set us up for it all. And Vivienne, of course, you'll be doing this along with us. So what we typically expect there is, as we go into this quiet space and we start to expand it, typically we find barriers, barriers like, here comes some chatter going on, or you'll start thinking about your to-do list, or what happened last week, or what you've got to do, after the workshop or the webinar is over. All this stuff goes on, okay? We want to try to get quiet. So these are little barriers to expanding it. This is the guard at the gate saying, I'll only go so far here. So then we're going to do some more tapping and expand. We want to get to the point with 2 or 3 of these exercises. So our foundation for this is as good as it could be. After a while, you don't need to keep doing this because you can do it rather quickly with the practice. But today we're going to do it that way. So everybody with me, if you would, having identified your loving moment, just tap along with me right here. Even though I may have barriers to expanding this loving moment.
Even though I may have barriers to expanding this loving moment.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Okay. These possible barriers.
Possible barriers.
These 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 possible barriers.
Okay, now I'm going to give us 1 minute. We close our eyes, and all we need to do here, we don't need to do anything more at this stage than just take this loving moment and make it even more loving, and see how far you go. We're going to do it for a minute. I'll join you. We'll get together and discuss again after a minute. Okay, Vivienne, let me ask you, how did you do that exercise? Were you able to do it all the way? Did you have barriers come up? What?
I was able to stay with it for the most part. My mind drifted a little bit, but not enormously. I'm already feeling huge electricity and nausea in my body coming to the call, just thinking about the things that I was going to talk about. So it's calmed it down a little bit, and I'm not feeling quite as anxious as I was.
Okay, and that's a good step into this. It's a good step into this. Okay. Others of you listening in may have gotten no place with this. You just had a bunch of chatter. That's okay. You didn't fail. There's just more practice needs to go on. That's the point. And that's why we do these practices, okay? But now we're going to do another round of it, another round of tapping. This time we're going to try to be quiet for 2 minutes, and we'll see what happens, okay? So along with me, even though I may still have some more barriers here.
Even though I may still have some more barriers here.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Okay, remaining barriers.
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 Remaining barriers. I would point out when you're tapping you're tapping over here on the collarbone points. I like to. That's not the ideal point. I like to take my fist and thump it right about where a man knots his tie. It's the beginning points of the collarbone here. Okay, that's usually a little simpler way to go about that. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to identify our loving moment. We're going to get into, our sole goal here is just to get into and expand and make more and more loving this moment. That's our sole goal. If our mind wanders onto something else, or we get angry, somebody did something to you last week or whatever it is, just let that be, but get back to it as you can. We want to get more and more and more into this loving feeling, because that's going to be a foundational piece to allow us to use our group work more effectively. So 2 minutes. See you guys in a bit. Okay, that's 2 minutes. Vivienne, what went on? Were you able to maintain it, improve it, not? Yes, no?
Improve it. The the loving moment that I was focusing on was one when my son was very young. And one of the issues, excuse me, that I'm dealing with now that's causing me a lot of anxiety is something that's going on with my son. So I found periodically, suddenly, that would intervene in my scene. I'd be having this amazingly beautiful scene with my young son, and then suddenly the moment of disruption that's going on with my son now would come in and I could go back.
Good, and thank you for that. And that's the kind of thing, realistically, that happens. Maybe not for everybody else here, but something like that can happen. Some interruption comes along, And so sometimes we just need to maybe shift to another loving moment sometimes. We have to play with this for ourselves, okay? But the idea of this is that we get into this loving moment and we're able to be calm and be quiet for a reasonable period of time. Were you able to do something like that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, more and more practice, we get to the point where these interfering things get less and less interferer-y. I don't know how to say that. Okay. But okay, so now with that in mind, and with our little practice that we just did, and mind you, those listening in, some are going to have different results than you were having, Vivienne, and that's just part of the individual process going on. But what we're going to do now is we're going to aim EFT something like you and I did individually before. We're going to aim at the symptoms, okay? First, we're going to get deeper in that later on, but at the symptoms. So for the moment, you were telling me you were having symptoms even currently. So can you tell me what those are?
Yes, I'm having that feeling of electricity in my body.
In the entire body?
My legs, my excuse me, so this my belly area, it's most pronounced. I'm having heart palpitations. My mouth and throat are dry. I have hissing in my ears. I have pressure in my temples.
I'm making a note here.
And I have very low-level nausea at the bottom of my throat.
Okay, I'm still writing. Okay, the electricity in your body, on a scale of 0 to 10, where 10's the worst it's ever been, what would you assess it now?
Right now, it's about 7.5, 8.
Okay, I'm going to say 7 or 8, something like that. Okay, the heart palpitations. Before we talked, it was pounding heart. Same thing.
It's not as bad as it was when you and I spoke a few days ago. It's a little bit less than that.
Okay, what number would you give it?
Also, a little bit less than when I first got on the call, having just done this visualization.
Okay, at the moment though, what number would you give it?
About a 5.
Okay, the dry mouth and throat?
About a 4.
The hissing in the ears?
It's pretty loud. That's maybe about 7.
A 7. Okay, the pressure in the temples?
That's like an 8 or 9.
Oh, okay.
It's the temples and my forehead, so around here.
I forgot. The last thing is I have low-level
Nausea.
Low-level nausea. Okay, what number do you give that?
About a 4.
About a 4.
4 or 5.
Okay, 4 to 5. All right, so here's what we're going to do as a group. We're going to aim this in a group way, done in a way where everyone has the opportunity to take care of their own issues. Okay, so what I've instructed everybody to do prior to even starting this webinar was to have everybody make a list of their own issues. Now, not everybody may have done that, but what I'd like to have you do now, I'm going to give you 1 minute to do this, everybody, to sit down and make a list of your issues, your physical issues now, emotional issues if you want to list those as well, and just make a list of them. 1 minute. We'll see you then. Okay. Hopefully that was enough time for people to put something down on your list. All right. So what we're going to do now is do joint work. We're going to attempt to gather together the healing power of everybody in their loving moments. And we're drawing upon the idea that comes not only from optimal EFT, but from A Course in Miracles. It also comes from quantum physics, etc., that we are not all separate as our senses tell us. We are instead all one. You and I talked about that, Vivienne, and that is within your belief understanding, is it not?
Yes.
Okay. So here's the idea of it. Like we did last time, we're going to imagine a large golden ball. And we are, when we start our timing again, everybody, including you, Vivienne, are going to add your love into this ball. You're also going to just mentally imagine the 143 people we have on this call right now. We're going to take the essence of each of those people, that is the loving, divine essence of them, not their body and all their features and their personalities and all that. The loving essence of them, that's going to go in the ball as well. So we're going to have 140 plus loving essences in there. You're going to add your love into it. Okay. And so we're going to have a ball full of everybody here's love. And that is going to expand on each other, etc. We're going to do the best we can with that. And while we're doing that, we are bringing in unseen therapists to look at all of the issues that everybody has written down, including you. We are not aiming our loving efforts at ourselves and at our own issues. We are not doing that. We are giving love to everyone else, and they are giving it to you. It's a joint thing that we are doing. It's very important to recognize. We're letting unseen therapists come in and do what she can do, aiming everything at symptomatic levels. Now, that was a lot of words, Vivienne. Any questions about that?
No.
Okay. Well, there may be questions others have, so I'm going to say it one more time just for completeness. We're going to put in this golden ball, the loving essence of everyone. We're going to add to it our own loving moments. And we are going to, with that, we're going to have an expanded loving ball that is showering love on everyone. We're going to bring in unseen therapists and say, we have ailments, we have issues. Please do your thing. Okay? And with that in mind, we're going to do that for 2 minutes, and then we're going to compare some notes and see what happens. Okay? All right. Here we go. Okay. How was that experience for you? The mental experience of it, Vivienne?
Very, very peaceful.
Very peaceful. All right, well, I have no idea what that did for your symptoms, but let's take a look. The electricity in your body, still a 7 or 8?
We're talking about the electricity, you said?
Yes.
No, that's a little bit less now. I'd say that's probably about a 5.
About a 5. And the heart palpitations?
It's like a 1.
Oh, they were a 5. Now they're a 1. Okay.
Yeah.
The mouth and throat dryness, they were a 4.
It's about a 2.
Okay. The hissing in your ears was a 7.
My left ear is maybe down to about a 2. My right ear is about still at a 7.
Okay, I'm making a little note here. The pressure in your temples was an 8 or 9.
It's maybe about a slightly decreased, maybe a 7.
Okay. And the low-level nausea, 4 or 5?
That's still about a 4.
Okay, that didn't shift. Okay. So we got some movement, aiming only at symptoms. Now, what I'm hoping people are doing as we do all this is they've made little numbers for themselves before and after, and so they can assess for themselves whether they're making progress or not, and so on. Okay. Now,
so now the heart palpitation is starting to come back up again.
Oh, it is. Okay. It was a 1. Now it's going back up to what?
About a 4 or 5.
Okay, so that's about up to where it was. So it temporarily came down.
Right.
And then came back up. And so
everything else seems to have, wherever it lowered, stayed lowered, but the heart palpitations are coming back.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, again, when we're aiming at symptoms, we typically are aiming not at the cause of it, although sometimes unseen therapist has enough to work with that it can get down and actually take care of the causes as well, but often not. So what we're going to do now, Vivienne, is we're going to look more at cause, and we're going to aim this with everybody at cause. And everybody else, since I don't know everybody's circumstances, you need to draw your own parallel here for your own circumstances. And that's one reason I record this, so you can go back and look at it, and you can stop it and, take more time and so on, okay? But you had mentioned to me, Vivienne, that there were some past life regressions that you did. And
I just want to say the electricity in my legs is now getting really strong again.
Okay, that's coming back as well. Okay, so it was a 7 or 8 down to a 5, and now what?
It's back up to a 7, 8.
Okay, all right. Not unexpected when we aim at symptoms. I really want to make that point. Okay. Now, so let's get back to past life. There's some suspicion that way back in past lives was a beginning trauma of some kind that may be foundational to all of this. And you've had several of these, if I recall correctly. But I don't know the details. 5. Okay. So if you would, pick out one of those, the one that seems the most foundational, or the first one that comes to mind, whatever it is, and tell me about that.
The earliest one. Okay. So the earliest one, I lived on, a long, long time ago, I lived on an island in the Pacific, and it was a tribal culture. We were very attuned to the ocean. We did a lot of sailing and a lot of working with winds and water, very close to the elements, very kind of idyllic life. And at some point, a huge meteor came and hit the island, and most of the island sunk, and most of the people on the island died. And I was quite young at the time. I was, I think, maybe like 7 or something. And a bunch of us were put onto a ship and went off to started a new life somewhere, and we left behind mostly the people were dead, and the island sunk completely. My whole country just disappeared.
Okay. As you say that, are your symptoms showing up again?
Oh yeah.
Is it fair to say that just the mere talking about it caused these symptoms to reemerge?
Well, it's now back in my left ear again. In fact, my left ear hurts now. There's like a pressure inside my ear.
Okay. And the nauseousness?
The nausea is the same, maybe a tiny bit more.
Okay.
I'm feeling it also in my belly, down beneath my belly button. Slight nausea down there as well, and I feel like I could cry any second.
Okay. Those are all signs that we're looking at. Maybe the cause, we don't know that, okay? But certainly pieces about that are foundational here. And so,
Like I feel that same sense of panic and terror and confusion and spaciness, like all of that helplessness, scared. I feel all of those emotions now.
okay, that was my next question to ask you, because I wanted to know what the emotions were. It's one thing to say, you know, we left and everybody died and the island sunk. Those are the facts. We want to get to the emotional responses you had to that. There was terror. There was various versions of lack of peace.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
You said terror, helplessness. Was there panic? Is that one of them?
Helplessness, terror, panic, a sense of not confusion, having no idea what to do, being scared, and being very almost dissociated, like really spaced out, just completely ungrounded.
All right. If you could take all those emotions and sort of put them in one little box and give me a 0 to 10 rating for them as you experience them now, what number would you give it? Not what it was then. What is it now as you experience that?
Right now it's about a 7.
All right. Okay. Now we're going to do this a little differently than we did the last effort. Again, everybody will be closing the eyes and everybody will be generating their loving moment. Again, we will have the loving ball. Again, we will have the essence of everyone. But this time, we're going to do it a little bit differently. We are going to focus on Vivienne and her panic, terror, helplessness, confusion, being scared, a bit dissociated. We're going to reference that in what we're doing, and we're going to aim this at that. Now, what's interesting about this is while it seems like we're aiming this at Vivienne, all of us have similar issues. They may not have the same circumstances. We may not have been an island in some past life, you know, it sank and all of that. But we have our own versions of panic, terror, helplessness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So as we are emanating love, bringing in unseen therapists for Vivienne's issues, we're also doing it for our own. I just want to bring that to the fore. So in this case, we're going to aim it at Vivienne, knowing it's also aiming it at ourselves in another way. Questions on that, Vivienne? What to do?
I actually am so spaced out. I missed the instructions.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. That's important to know. So I'm going to do it again. We are going to again get quiet. We are again going to bring up the loving golden ball. We are again going to share our love with it, but this time everybody will be aiming their love at your helplessness, terror, panic, etc. that you talked about. We're going to be aiming in
Paralysis, that's a big one. I'm actually feeling this charge now in my whole body.
paralysis.
I feel paralyzed. I think it would be hard for me to stand up right now.
Okay. All right, so we're all going to aim at that. We're going to send love and bring unseen therapists in. We're going to do it as a group. We're going to do it for 2 minutes. What you will be doing is the same thing, but you will bring an unseen therapist in for your specific ailments, okay, your specific emotional stuff. We're aiming at the emotional stuff, the cause stuff, rather than the symptoms.
Okay.
Are we clear?
Yes.
All right. Okay, 2 minutes, guys. Okay. How do you feel, Vivienne?
I still feel very spacey. The electricity now is back down in my lower body, not so much in my upper body.
Okay.
Actually, very little in my upper body. The nausea is still there and in the bottom of my throat, but it's not in my belly anymore. My left ear, the pain went away in my left ear. I still have a lot of hissing in my right ear, but I'd say it's now that down to about a 4, maybe even a 3. I'm still having very dry mouth, dry throat.
It went from previously that went from a 4 to a 2. Is it still a 2 or a 4 or what?
The dry throat, it's back at about a 4.
Okay. The heart palpitations?
The heart palpitations? Two.
Okay. You were estimating the electricity in your body at a 7 or 8 last time. Is it still 7 or 8? What do you give it now?
4.
4. Okay. Now, let me ask you this. What is your number for the box of things, the panic, the terror, the helplessness, the confusion, and so on?
That's at about a 5, and I also now feel exhausted. I mean, just like deeply exhausted in my bones.
When you were doing this yourself, Was that an exhaustive process for you or a peaceful process?
Just now when I was doing it?
Yeah.
Peaceful.
Peaceful. Can you give me some sense of where the exhaustion came from?
I don't know. I just all of a sudden feel like I could just like fall over like a rag doll. I would just feel exhausted.
Okay. Are you okay with continuing?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm going to do another round this time. It's going to be a little different. Instead of using the golden ball, there's a metaphor that I like to use, and I'm just going to suggest everybody use it. But if you don't like this metaphor, use another one of your own that you may like better. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to imagine in this next process that I am you, Vivienne. Okay, and I'm going to imagine myself on this ship, and the island sinking, and all of these emotions, which I tend to call jitters in the system. That's just metaphorically the way I say it. They're like jitters, okay? Mm-hmm. And what I tend to want to do is I bring this water. This is the unseen therapist. I bring this waterfall down over the jitters, and the jitters go and turn to peace. That's just a metaphorical way of bringing unseen therapist in. It's a way that I like to do. Others may want to do it differently. You may want to see all of the emotional issues as a red ball and have a nice breeze come by and take all the red away and turn it into blue. There's all kinds of ways to do this kind of thing. That's what I'll do. And I'm going to ask everybody to do that. Yourself as well, Vivienne. And we'll see what happens at the end of 2 minutes, okay? All right. Go ahead, guys. Okay, Vivienne, how is your spaciness? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I was just checking in.
Okay.
I'm feeling a pressure on the top of my head. I'm quite a bit more present.
The combined emotions of panic, terror, helplessness, confusion, and so on we talked about, is that still a 5 as you go back to it?
It's still a 5.
It's still a 5. Are there any features to it that are different than the previous one?
It's not so much panic and terror anymore. It's more helpless, paralyzed, exhausted.
All right. I'm making a little note here. Okay, and how are your physical symptoms?
The palpitations are pretty much stopped. The left ear is very low. There's a slight pressure in my ear, but not much more than that. The right ear is about, you got a 2. The nausea, none in my belly. It's about a 1, just very slight.
Okay.
My temples up here, that's maybe down to 2. The electricity is only, it's in my legs, and it isn't even electricity so much anymore. My legs just feel very heavy.
Okay, I just want to get behind that. The electricity is gone. There is now a heaviness.
Right.
Okay. And so the electricity is a 0, but there's a heaviness of, what number would you give it?
About a 7.
Okay. And the dry mouth and throat?
Well, I just had some water, so yeah, it's still there. It's hard to evaluate because I just drank some water.
Yeah, okay. All right. Okay. So, going back a second, when I asked you about the collection of emotions you were feeling having to do with the being on the ship and the island sinking and so on, I think you said the panic and the terror were gone. Did I remember that right?
Yeah, I don't feel panicked right now. I feel kind of scared, helpless, a bit paralyzed, very tired.
Let me ask you this. Before you said your paralysis was such that you might have a hard time standing up. Is that still true?
It's the heaviness in my legs. I feel like they wouldn't function right.
Okay. All right. We're going to do another round, but this time we're going to aim at the more specifics of this collection of emotions. We're going to eliminate the panic and the terror part of it because that doesn't seem to be there. Instead, there is this helplessness. There is this exhaustion. There's still it's a symptom, but the heaviness in your legs, which I think is related to all this kind of thing.
It's not panic anymore. It's just scared. I'm scared and I feel helpless and confusion. Right. It's like, that's what the spaciness is. It's like, I don't understand what's going on. It's hard to focus. Okay.
I want to get to a point that I often do with EFT, and that is I want to talk about the difference between the logic of this and the emotional response to this. Logically, do you still need to be panicky or scared, helpless, etc. about that now when it happened a long time ago?
No.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's a very logical question. The answer is almost always no. But it's very important sometimes to make that distinction, that we realize that was back then and now is now, and that was a historical thing. And what we want to do is make that historical thing something like falling off your bicycle at age 5, skinning your knee, not liking it at the time, but so what? Here you are now and you recovered. Okay, and that's where we want to get. Okay, so what we're going to do now as a group is to imagine ourselves being you on this ship, etc., with the scared, helpless feeling, and recognizing that, gee, that was then, it's not now. We don't need to still replay that over and over and over again. And we're going to bring an unseen therapist about that. I'm going to still use my jitter thing, but I'm going to focus it in on the fact that we're scared and we're helpless. Don't really need it. It's a not very necessary response to all of that because you're still playing with it here lifetimes later. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That lines up with you, okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we're going to do that. We're going to be quiet, 2 minutes. We're going to bring an unseen therapist having to do with the scared feeling, the unnecessary scared and helpless feeling. Mm-hmm. All right. See you in 2 minutes. Okay, Vivienne. Let me share with you and everybody else what went on in my own head as far as all this was concerned while I was doing that. I brought it in. I became you. That's the way I like to do it. I became you. Imagine myself being on this ship and feeling scared and helpless. Unseen therapist comes in and sort of gently takes me being you. And the two of us sort of float off onto a cloud, sitting on it. We looked back at the circumstance, and we could look at it like it was a sort of a movie where you were really protected but really didn't realize it in the divine sense, and allowed you to have it at the time, but recognize it's not useful, it's a temporary thing. And so that's just what happened, okay, with me. What happened with you?
I would say the most apt description of what I was feeling was kind of shock, kind of numbness, that heaviness in my legs, feeling kind of numb and confused and not knowing what's going on. It's not panic anymore. It's like shock.
All right. Is it scared and helpless?
Scared and helpless are in there, but it's really a sense of shock. Like, I just don't know how to incorporate this experience. I don't know what to do with it.
Okay.
Frozen.
Yeah. I would like everybody really to recognize this is part of the more sophisticated uses of EFT. And that is we start getting down to details, but we listen to the client, and we started off with panic and helplessness and terror and this kind of thing, and these things start to fall apart, and they fall by the wayside. I mean, and so what ends up happening is that the words that are used to discuss all of this shift and change. So now the word is shock. Shock didn't come up at all to begin with. So what happens is things start to get taken care of. New things come up to keep putting on the table. Am I putting words in your mouth, or does that fit?
Yes, that fits.
That fits. Okay. All right. Great. Go through your symptoms for me for a second.
Okay, my legs are still very heavy, but I'd say they're now at about maybe a 4. I'm not feeling much in my belly. Heart palpitations, 1. Nausea, I'm not feeling the nausea anymore. My left ear is fine. There's no pressure in there anymore. My right ear is hissing at about a 2. The pressure up along here, that's maybe at about a 2. I have some pressure on the top of my head, that's about a 2. The dryness in my mouth is now more exaggerated than it was before.
Okay. But overall, that was an improvement from the previous times?
Physically, yes.
Yeah. Okay, you said physically, but I guess not emotionally?
No, I really feel like frozen. I feel like I'm literally in a state of shock. I just feel frozen.
All right.
Figure out what to do.
All right, we're going to do one more round of this, and then I'm going to open this up for people with questions, comments, and so on. Okay, and this round we're going to do now is going to be on the shock, the frozenness of it, and we now know that
I feel it up like this motion up the back of my neck that's cold. That moves from my shoulders up through my neck to the lower part of my head.
Okay, and that is a physical symptom that wasn't there when we started.
Right.
Okay. Okay, I really need to make this point, and we need probably have more time than we're doing here, and you and I can work together after this, okay? But what I need to point out is the symptoms keep changing. As the symptoms change, some symptoms get much, much better, some disappear, etc. New ones come up, etc. All of that is reflective of more issues, that have been taken care of because their physical symptoms are improving. But new symptoms keep coming up, which is reflective of other unresolved stuff showing up. And this happened with some frequency. We just keep at them. So we're going to do one more round of this on the frozenness, the shockness of it, that emotional thing, and then we're going to compare notes, and then we will open this up. I see some other people have comments or questions now, so but we'll get to that in a little bit. So let's start with, we're going to do 2 more minutes, but we're going to now bring an unseen therapist for the frozenness, the shockness of the circumstance, okay? By the way, before we start, Vivienne, give me a number for the shockness of it.
8.5.
All right, thank you. 2 minutes. Okay, Vivienne, how's the shockness? Still an 8.5?
Yes. And the heart palpitations are starting again.
Okay. All right. That to me is indicative of more and more stuff. I mean, we're clearing some stuff, other stuff coming up. Does it feel that way to you?
Yes, I'm not panicked anymore. This isn't panic that I'm feeling. It's a completely different experience.
All right. Okay. And we only have so much time here. So you and I are going to work on this afterwards.
Okay, great.
Because we'll start digging more of this up. And this, by the way, sometimes we'll do this and, one session, fine, we get a lot of stuff done. Other times, more stuff comes up, more stuff comes up, more stuff comes up, and we keep going until not so much stuff comes up. So we have a number of people that have questions here. Let me call on Lucia August. Go ahead, Lucia.
Hi, Gary. It's
Hi.
Lucia.
Hi.
Lucia, like fuchsia.
Okay.
All right. So I have a couple of questions, technical questions. If you're working one-on-one with somebody, do you use the same golden ball idea of you put them in the golden ball and you put energy in the golden ball, or what? How do you put that with one-on-one?
I don't use the golden ball one-on-one. Golden ball is something I design as a metaphor for a group to get together. It's a nice way to kind of put everything in one place. Okay. When I'm one-on-one with somebody, I simply become them. Now, there are some people who are very empathic. They don't want to become somebody else because they start to pick up all their stuff. It doesn't bother me, so I just do that. I become somebody else. But you can reference them. You can imagine them over there, and you're sending unseen therapists for them, whatever. So I don't use the golden ball one-on-one.
Okay. And also, when I'm imagining, and somehow it's really easy in a group, but one-on-one, am I supposed to keep focused on their problem and then bring the unseen therapist in? To me, that seems like a contradiction. How do I focus on the problem and focus on the unseen therapist at the same time?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know that I necessarily focus on the problem. I identify the problem. There's a difference.
Oh, okay.
It's not like we have to sit down and say, okay, unseen therapist, now, here's what you need to do today, the problem, da-da-da-da-da. I mean, we have our own view of what the problem may be. Unseen therapist comes in representing a spiritual dimension, knows much more about this than we will ever know. And we can be wrong in our conclusions.
Okay.
And the kind of healing that gets done, sometimes we don't see it.
Right.
Because it's done at a level, that's outside of our awareness. But often enough, it's within our awareness. We can measure and we go, wow, okay. But I don't focus. I don't go, oh, I've got to be focused. No. Okay. I identify it.
Okay. You identify it, and then you allow unseen therapist to do her work.
Yes.
And so you're getting out of the way, in other words, of her getting.
Yeah. My purpose in this mix is to counsel with the client and to bring things that the guard at the gate may be hiding and put them on the table. And that's what I'm trying to do. And that's what happened with Vivienne, because we have all these the helplessness and as you saw, the words used to describe the issues kept changing and shifting.
Yes.
So that's me getting down into the bowels of this, if you will.
Yes.
And finding things down there that we need to now maybe hidden, guard the gate doing that, put it on the table, and so on. So that's my function here.
I see. It feels a lot to me like praying for somebody.
Well, in a way it is. In a way, it's an interesting, thank you, but it's an interesting way of praying, because oftentimes when people pray, and there's different versions of that, but, you pray and you don't always see, in fact, often you don't see tangible results. You pray and you hope, kind of thing. But with this, we're aiming at specifics so that oftentimes we can see very measurable answers to the prayer.
And right in front of you, like in that same moment practically, or within a few minutes.
Sometimes within a day or two it takes as well. But that's what happens, yeah. So it is a form of prayer, with the advantage of oftentimes you can measure your result. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Just a minute. I've got to. All right, Evan. Gonna unmute.
Yes.
You. Hi, Evan.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I actually had a question about if you were going to use EFT to manifest something.
If I'm going to use what for example?
Well, for me specifically, it is manifesting sex with women.
I wish I could. What I would do with that, hold on a moment here. Yeah, what I would do with that, if we were having a session ourselves, I would start looking at the reasons why you may not be having this result that you want. How might you be stopping it yourself, for example? What kind of issues might you have had in your own past that would contribute to the stopping there of it? And that's what we do. And then we'd start finding out what emotional issues and spiritual issues may be in the way.
Right,
right. And then go from there. But it isn't like I would do optimal EFT like okay, unseen therapist, I want to have 100 women, in my living room before the sun sets, and expect that. I think that's actually asking a bit much. It'd be
right. I understand.
It'd be more of a process.
Okay, so essentially then to focus on any issues that I may have had in the past then, correct?
Well, yes. Yeah, and yes. And you may want to have somebody with skills on this help you, but you can certainly give it a shot on your own.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Evan. All right, Brian?
Hello. Hi there, can you hear me?
Yeah, gotcha, Brian.
Okay, perfect. All right. I have a question kind of on the manifesting thing. Career-wise and business-wise, I've had a sticking point, and I've tried to, use optimal EFT and things like it to address it. But one thing that I found odd is it seems like a lot of other issues in my life are getting better. Besides that, like for instance, I tried to use optimal EFT for, just finances and career, that kind of stuff. And as a result, I lost 65 pounds of fat and put on maybe about 5 or 10 pounds of muscle. So, that's a wonderful benefit. I love that. I'm not complaining.
Yes.
But instead of me getting fatter, I would like my skills and my career and my bank account to get fatter.
Okay.
So I want the fat to go from one,
okay. So I'm curious about something, Brian. The weight loss and the muscle gain and all of that, was that something you also aimed optimal EFT at or not?
No. It's something that I just tried to get through by brute force, by willpower, everything else. And then, but what was weird is that I always had some kind of doubt in my mind that I could stick with a plan or that I was always giving something. It was hard. And then, but now I have a certainty that it's not that I'm going to reach my goal. It's just that I am a healthy and thin person now. It's different. It's not like, and it's just a matter of not if I'm going to reach my ideal body weight, which I'll probably get it by my birthday, but it's a matter of when and how. And so, and I want those similar kind of certainty and feelings with my career and my business. I want that same kind of attitude.
Well, the approach I would use would be similar to the one I just talked about with Evan.
Okay.
Although instead of aiming it at sexual stuff, it's be aimed at financial stuff. But
okay.
And I've counseled with lots of people over time using EFT in the tapping form. Same thing here. For financial issues. But to me, from a financial point of view, there's two prongs to it. One is the how-tos of it. How to advertise. This kind of thing. Are you there?
I'm still here. Yeah.
Okay. Well, your video went off. That's okay. So one of those is to go to the how-tos of it. And I don't teach the how-tos of it so much. There's lots of books written on the how-tos and how.
I work for a marketing company, and I have loads and loads and loads of how-tos.
Yeah.
And that's what's so frustrating with me. It's like I have all these wonderful, amazing mentors and tools in front of me, but yet I'm still stuck. And that's why I know it's nothing about the how-tos. It has all something to do with my emotional.
Okay. All right. All right. So this is a different topic than we're dealing with Vivienne, but let me address it because it's a lot of people ask about this. First of all, there are all kinds of people out there advertising EFT for financial wealth and this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen some of what's been done. I haven't seen too many results, etc. And I think that's because it's not aimed properly. Somewhere in there are your own emotional blocks to all of this.
They're blocks. Yeah, I want to build my skills. I'm not expecting money just to fall from the sky magically just by wishing the unseen therapist, hey, make me rich. You know.
Yeah. No,
I want to build my skills.
It's not this. No, it's not the skills. From my view, it's not the skills we need to address. It's the emotional blocks that are there. And
yeah, to keep me from building the skills. Yeah.
Yeah, and they are stoppers, and I don't know what they are for you, and that would be the kind of thing that would take some one-on-ones with, etc. But possibilities are somewhere back in there is let's say a belief like it's not spiritual to earn a lot of money. Only greedy people are rich. And there's lots of things like that. I remember I used to sit at the dinner table with my father when I was 10 years old. And my father was a blue-collar worker, and he would sit at the table and he would complain about the price of bread. And he would say, all they care about it, and he would have this snarl in his lip, like that, are those profits, And I'm sitting there 10 years old, and I'm getting this message.
Okay.
Oh, those who seek profits are bad somehow. Well, I managed to get over it. But that's the kind of embedding, and that's the kind of thing we talk about if we're one-on-one, and we start bringing these stuff and put them on the table, because we can look back at all of that and say, well, that's just foolishness, But it still has its emotional tug on us.
Yeah.
Just like with Vivienne, something that happened in a previous life or a long time ago still has an emotional tug on her.
Right.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. The only thing is just that my guard at the gate must be on steroids or something. Because I have a hard time uncovering specific events. I mean, it's just thermal, and I can't ever pinpoint, specific times. I even have difficulty making an event up. So, I just need.
Well, I tell you what, Brian, give me an email, and we'll spend a little time together on it. Okay.
Okay, I appreciate it.
All right, thanks. All right. Henk from the Netherlands.
Hi, Gary.
Hi.
I want to go back to the session with Vivienne.
Yes.
And I was wondering, why didn't you focus on the episode on the island instead of the episode on the boat? Because I suppose all the emotions are gathered on the island.
Well, because that was my choice at the time. Now, maybe I should have, in retrospect, gone back to the island. I don't know, okay? We are making progress by going out on the boat. And more stuff is coming up, and more stuff is coming up that we didn't have time to address here. But we got stuff out of the way, more stuff coming up, and so we're on the progress that I'm used to seeing. Could we have made more progress by staying on the island? Maybe. Could we have made more progress if I went to some other past life event that one wasn't anything even about? What wouldn't surprise me if I talk with Vivienne is maybe some other issues from some other unresolved past lives, in her case, are showing up, and that's why we're getting some of these other things that really aren't part of the island or the ship.
Yeah.
Okay? Those are unknowns to us, and that's why we have to keep digging. But you make a really good point. Just because I went to the ship didn't make me right. And
I understand.
And if I wasn't making any progress, I would stop and go to the island or go to some other past life event.
My thoughts about it was because he stuck in the shock, and mostly you are in shock after heavy emotions. So that seems to be that the heavy emotions are from the island instead of the boat. That was the reason I thought about it.
And you could well be right.
I'm not,
and if it was your client, you would start there.
yes.
And you may well get farther than I did. We don't know. We don't know. I just go by what my gut tells me at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Hank. All right. Let me see. Creed, K-R-E-I-D.
Oh, that's Kathy Reed.
Oh, Kathy Reed. Hi.
Hi. I want to first thank you, Gary, for expanding your EFT. I've been a practitioner since 2003, and so stepping into Optimal EFT feels really right in my heart. I have to tell you that. It's just a real blessing to be with you and work with you. I wanted to mention when I was working with Vivienne is that I tried to release or surrender and release the energy first. So relax her physical body just so that she could open up her heart to receive the love that was coming in. And I'm not sure if that would make a difference or not. I just feel that really getting in there and allowing the body to completely relax, surrender, bring the shoulders down, and allow the heart just completely open up. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, and there are lots of ways to relax into this. I mean, we could do a meditation, where we count from 10 on down to 1, this kind of thing, and we can do some hypnotic kind of things. We could do what you're talking about, some body relaxation, and all of that are options here to get us into this loving state. It was suggested to me, and I didn't really bring it up here, that we ought to bring the topic of gratitude into the mix here. I haven't used that word so much, but love and gratitude, I mean, they're combined. Love, joy, gratitude, all of that, peace, all that is in the same box. But that doesn't mean I shouldn't mention some of these things and focus on them.
Yeah. I just find that the body can receive the energy if you're in a total relaxed state of consciousness, if you want to call it, and feel really grateful that that energy is coming in and supporting me and loving me.
Yes, and I would certainly agree with you. In my experience, I'm finding that there are people, as I'm doing this with, that get in the exact opposite of a relaxed state. Similar to Vivienne, she had shock and helplessness and spaciness and things like that. Okay, I tend not to stop and say, "Okay, well, let's just relax now." I tend to say to myself, "Oh, gee, we have an important issue on the table now. So let's bring unseen therapists in and do what we can do with this." That's just my way of going about it.
So by allowing them to stay in that shock state, you're really bringing it to the surface and allowing that unseen therapist to do what it's going to do to release that shock feeling inside. Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily make me right, but in my own perception, in my own experience, if I were to stop and say, "Oh, you feel spacey," well, okay, let's close our eyes. What I'm doing now is I'm doing another form of therapy to bring her down. The unseen therapist is the form we're using here to bring her down.
Okay. What I was doing was I was stepping into her and feeling all the emotions and the tensions and that feeling inside, and then I relaxed into it and then opened my heart and then brought the unseen therapist in. I just thought maybe that would be something she could do too, but I understand where you're coming from. No,
these are all options.
Okay.
I don't have the way to do any of this.
Okay.
But let me ask you, as you were doing all this, did you make a list of issues yourself?
I did.
Did you notice improvements?
Yeah, I did. And what was really interesting for me is when I went into the shock, a whole bunch of images of my own life came into my consciousness, and I went, whoa, well, just a minute, I'm supposed to be focusing on Vivienne. But I could see all these images coming into my life of past experiences, and I just thought, oh, wow, this is so interesting, because now I'm dealing with my own stuff at the same time.
Yeah, and here comes unseen therapist saying to you, here's issue 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Absolutely. It was very interesting to me.
Did you happen to notice whether those particular issues, which may or may not have been on your original list, got any resolution?
I think bringing awareness to them was the beginning of that. They weren't on my list at all. I had a complete different list. So when I actually stepped into it and relaxed into it, the images, I just allowed them to come to the surface. And I think that was the beginning of healing. And I think coming to awareness, this may be still in your, what you'd call your meridian system. You may want to deal with that. So,
yeah.
But very interesting for me.
Yeah. I had something I was going to say about that, but it left. Okay. All right. Thanks, Kathy.
Namaste.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye. All right. Mirette.
Hi, Gary.
Hi.
So nice to see you finally.
Yeah.
I have a question. When you bring in the unseen therapist, how do you do it? I mean, you did it in several ways. So do you just imagine them, him or her, and just that they're healing things, like taking away whatever's going on, or what?
It sort of varies, and I probably use the term bringing in the unseen therapist. I probably use that. I think a better term, though, would be I just invite her in.
Okay.
It's like she's sitting there anxiously saying, give me an opening here, folks. Okay. She doesn't, I mean, we have to invite her in. We can shut her out all day long. The guard at the gate, the ego can do that all day long. And it does it with great frequency. So what we're trying to do is just open the door so she can walk in. So I just simply invite her in. I'm saying, look, here's the issue. We're putting something on the table here.
Okay.
You know,
and do you just not interfere and ask her to do anything? You just tell her just come in and, handle?
Well, that's an interesting question. My conscious effort is hands off. I don't want to do anything. On the other hand, I oftentimes bring in metaphors like my waterfall, over the jitters and this kind of stuff. And one might interpret that as me saying, or me telling unseen therapist what to do. Bring your waterfall in and take care of these jitters, please. Okay. But it's rather that metaphor is more for me as a guideline for what may be happening. I don't do it in a way saying, okay, unseen therapist, here's the issue. You come in and bring a waterfall in and do it my way. No. It's got to be a more hands-off thing. The metaphor is for me. Oftentimes that metaphor will simply shift. Like this time it went up to a cloud, if you recall, at one point. Okay. It'll just simply shift or not be there at all that I can notice. So it varies. But to answer your question, I don't really have a formal way of bringing her in. It's just simply an invitation. She's aching to show up.
Okay. And then when she shows up, she knows what is there on the place.
Yes.
Right?
And yes, she knows what to do. One of the things we have to accept about all that is what she does, we may not be able to measure, and it may not be addressing the particular issue we want done right now. There may be something more important in the background.
Okay. So I can invite her anytime, right? Sit quietly and, whatever's going on, just invite her in to deal with or handle or whatever.
Yeah. And that's the essence of what I call conversational EFT. You familiar with that term?
A bit, yeah.
Well, it's like you have a headache and you and I are in conversation and while we're talking, I'm bringing in unseen therapist for your headache. Okay. It takes a little practice to do that, and I'm not as good at it as I will be. But it's the same idea. Bring her in.
So can I have another minute? I wrote you an email that I've been having this. I am an EFTer and I'm accredited, and I've been doing this since 2008. But suddenly, last September, this huge phobia shows up in my life. It had roots it was quite back when I was young. I also had the phobia. But now it's like really, really, really high to the point that sometimes I feel locked in my body. Like I can sit in space, and so I'm not really going into traffic. I'm not traveling. I used to go to the States and the UK every year to conferences, and it makes me very sad. And I makes me very, very sad. Like this stops my life. I've done like 5 sessions with others. I've done matrix re-imprinting. Somebody did that on me. I've had someone do pro EFT on me. I had somebody do other stuff on me. And I've tapped a lot of stuff, but I tend to think it has to do with I haven't found anything physically where I was stuck in crowded place in my real life. But I haven't also seen any images of something in past life. I do believe in past lives very much. I've seen other things. And I don't know what's going on. And it's really, 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 the most things I get really sad. Like I can't do anything anymore. And on the plane back from, I had attended Bruce Lipton's event in September in the UK. And on the way back in the plane, it was the most horrendous trip for me. And palpitations, like panic. I tapped the whole trip, standing by the bathroom way in the back, and wanting to get out. And I kept feeling as if something is telling me, you're not on planes anymore. This is the end. And then it got worse. I live in Egypt. It got worse when I came back to Egypt, like in a car. And it's just, I'm feeling very limited.
Well,
I want to try this out. Yeah, thank you.
You're talking about using tapping in there. Have you used an unseen therapist for it?
No, that's why when I saw your mail, it was like, oh my God, it wasn't on my mind. I'd watched you before, and I thought, I need to be on this. This is like, might be my solution.
Okay. Well, just as Kathy did when she was going through all this, she had a bunch of issues come up that, weren't not in her awareness. And if you do this and come back next time and so on, we do more of this, you may, as you get more practice at this, you may well have these things start showing up. I'm urging everybody here, whether or not you got results this time, to recognize this is all practice and it's all refining skills. If you've got nothing, well, so be it. But that doesn't mean you stop. That means you need more practice. Because there's a lot of value here for you. So that's what I have to suggest.
Thank you. I'll continue. Thank you so much.
Okay, Miret. Thank you. Okay. Whoops. There we go. Whoops. Okay. Vivienne, do you have anything more to talk about today?
No.
Okay. How are you feeling now?
Very, very tired. Like as soon as we get off this, I'm probably going to go to sleep for a little bit. I'm just feeling completely exhausted.
All right. After that, email me, okay?
Okay.
All right. Thanks. Sherry, do you have any thoughts? Well, I'm sure she's there. I probably muted her and didn't mean to. Hold on a second. Sherry, where are you, Sherry? Yeah. All right, there you are. Sherry.
Hello.
Hi.
Fascinating as always. It is interesting to me how course principle plays out. I would love to hear perhaps next time some of the success stories of other people that experience healing today as they were helping Vivienne. Because, course principle, giving and receiving are one in truth. When I'm healed, I'm not healed alone. It's interesting to me that healing is more something that we give, and it's in the giving that we would receive.
Yes, and thank you for that, Sherry, because what I want to emphasize here is I need feedback from everybody here. I need to know if you got nothing, if you think something got worse, you got some fabulous results. If you don't tell me what happens, I don't know. It's that feedback that allows me to do this next time, refine it, get this so more and more people can use it, more and more people can attend these webinars and get more and more results. But if I don't get feedback, I'm stopped. So please go to our website, our contact form, write me a note, tell me what happened. And that's really going to help everybody if you'll do that, okay? So with that in mind, I am going to give our standard hug and a Valentine's Day kiss to everyone, and I'll see you next time.